Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to touch a little bit on the influence that the polar traffic has had on global aviation, what the effect is, at least in my view. So what I will touch upon is the impact of the polar traffic, and how can the infrastructure maybe serve some other uses in the polar area, and issues of concern that I think would be issues that could be raised in future Arctic Circle meetings. And then at last I would like to touch a little bit on what our moderator pointed out, the development in UAVs, or unmanned aerial systems, and what possibilities are of development and how the polar area or the Arctic area can contribute to that. But first I'd like to touch a little bit on who we are. So that is Isavia, and of course emphasizing on the area that I'm involved in, the air navigation services, but Isavia is also operating the airports in Iceland and the terminal. So I'd like to thank you all, because you're probably all customers, good and honorable customers of our company. But what I'd like to look upon is the Arctic airspace. And it's really remarkable how this has developed. And it has developed because of the practical application of just between people that are working on a practical level and very results-oriented. So you have in this area mostly the Russian airspace of Magadan and Murmansk, Anchorage, Alaska, of course, Bodø in Norway, and then Reykjavik control area, and then the Edmonton area. So you have all these service providers that are these areas contributing to this work, and also the airlines and the airline organizations, and coming together for practical solutions. This started back in 1998, and there were previous discussions, and it's a long history that I won't go into, but the first real flight happened between Hong Kong and New York in 1998. That has remained a scheduled service. So I use that very much in my presentation. So what I want to emphasize first, what effect has this had? And if we look upon what we had before, a New York, Los Angeles, Hong Kong flight would be 19 hours with one stop. That's a normal flight there. If you would go the other way around and you would use New York, London, Hong Kong, you still had 19 hours, so it was the same distance both ways with 1 hour of stop. But going straight across, you have only 16-hour flight, direct flying time. So if we look upon the effect of the developments that have happened and what is likely to happen in the future, is that we have the cross-border traffic now at about 15,000 flights per year. That's about 13,200 people a day. So if you look upon travel hours saved by travelers, it's about 19 million, or over 19 million travel hours that people save. A lot of people that are doing, of course, jobs. And flight hours is about 45,000 flight hours saved. And you can imagine the fuel burn that is then reduced and the emissions that are reduced because of that. So the work that everybody contributing to this work has done has a tremendous effect on both the environmental issues and also of the cost of running this. So what we are then also looking at that the infrastructure that is in place, and I know Larry in his presentation will touch on some future applications that are coming. What is used? We have an extensive, or Isavia and also the other providers, have an extensive infrastructure supporting communication in the polar regions because of the aviation. So there's a possibility of utilizing those resources also to support other initiatives like research and, of course, search and rescue, and even maritime operations. So I think there's a need to coordinate a little bit what is in place, what infrastructure is in place in what area, so they can support each other as well and look at that issue. Another issue which I think, and I mentioned in the beginning, that would be maybe for the next Arctic Circle, are the issues relating, for example, to radiation effect on crew and passengers. The atmosphere in the polar region is about 8 kilometers high. In the equator, it's about 18 kilometers. So most of the flights are conducted for a very long duration with above the atmosphere, and long duration flights with high degree maybe of radiation. This is, of course, a medical concern both for the crews and the passengers, which I think is an area that is already being studied, but it's one area that would be interesting to have a discussion about at the next forum. Another one with fuel temperature used to be a bigger problem, but it still has an effect on how you control air traffic. Jet fuel might gel up about 40 to 47 degrees minus Celsius. Of course, there are heating arrangements that pilots can do, things like that, but it is a concern that an aircraft might have to descend fairly quickly and speed up in order to get more friction on the wings, to get heat into the wings. So you have to take account on that in managing air traffic. Of course, the search and rescue issues are always there, but they will be touched on another thing at another place. One thing I wanted, and our moderator put this one up, UAVs or unmanned aircraft have always been a discussion. I've taken part in these discussions a long time, and they were very much focused on, well, of course, the military, and everybody knows that, but also on special purpose in special areas, usually dealt with by using airspace reservations, where you reserve certain airspaces for that, or it's happening in certain theaters. What has been the great challenge is how do you move these unmanned aircraft for commercial use or common use into the general aviation or the normal operation. In the polar region is very well adapted to dealing with this. It's a very structured region. It has a very good coordination between all partners. It doesn't have a high density population on the routes, underneath the routes. And also these are sort of, and if you think about a cargo flight, this is basically just a flying container with a very good control and communication system. If you can take everything out of the airplane, like life support, seats, toilets, food, kitchens, you take everything out, what do you have? You just have basically a flying container, a very cost-efficient and fuel-efficient way of carrying cargo. So, and I think that's a great opportunity also in here. Iceland Keflavik Airport is situated at the edge of the Arctic in that sense. So you can think about this for a while, that in the future you could have, for example, a cargo terminal there. And what will happen, you would have an airplane coming from Asia, from Korea, China, or Japan, and it would be arriving, not like a missile, but like a flight, coming into Keflavik, and then the whole thing being distributed, or the cargo, by normal passenger flights with extra cargo and things like that. So it's a food for thought, and I think it's a great opportunity for anybody that wants to follow it up. Thank you very much.